We found this old picture of these children born in the late 1800s, and we were curious to know what happened to them after this picture was taken.
Did they make it out of childhood? Did they have children of their own? What kind of lives are waiting for them just around the corner?
Hang out with us while we tell the story of the Hollingsworth children with an insane coincidence tying back to one of our older episodes. Thelma Obensheen
Right.
was living.
Wow. That's really cool.
And we're going to be paying tribute to a World War II prisoner of war. So there's a lot in this one, so stick around. This video is sponsored by FlexiSpot, but more on that later. You know, I remember walking around this particular antique mall, which is in a refurbished high school basketball gym. It's actually really interesting. You don't even realize what you're in until a few minutes of walking around. And you see the lines on the floor, and then you look up and you see the goals. And you're like, oh, this used to be a basketball gym like 50 years ago. So it was pretty cool. And they had a lot of booths, and I finally found one booth that had a ton of pictures. I dug through most everything that was there, and there were only a handful that actually had names on the back. This one didn't just have a couple of clues on it. This picture has the names of all 4 kids pictured, the name of their dad, the town they were from, and even an other sibling that isn't pictured. I mean, that's not really clues, that's just information. Made it pretty easy to find them. Now, if only every family picture was labeled like this. I decided to start by creating a family tree in Ancestry so that I could group their kids later and make it a little easier to see everything. And I figured Lottie was a nickname, but I wasn't sure for what.
Charlotte.
But that's what Google's for. I punch it in, and our friend Google spits out Charlotte. She already knew the answer. Charlotte. Lottie is short for Charlotte. So I didn't know that. I guess you did.
You should have asked me.
Well, and now I know.
I guess Google is faster.
You probably weren't around. That makes enough sense for me. So we can just put both. I like to do this so the site search function can pick up both variations on records where they might have used one or the other. Now I can go into Jim or Charlotte, it doesn't matter, to add the kids in the picture. This is going to tell Ancestry that I'm looking for records on this particular family, which will generate tailored hits for our research. Once we have everyone in there, we can start learning. I hope these videos help you in your own family searches and give you an idea of where to start. I like using the pictures we find to show somewhat simple techniques to solve your own family mysteries. So if you like this video and it helps you out and you gain something from it, please give us a like and subscribe.
Little David Hollingsworth, born in 1903, Hickman County, Kentucky. And on the 1920 census, the family is living in Columbus, Kentucky, which is a very small town. And according to Wikipedia, here's what downtown looked like in 1920. It looks like the town I grew up in.
Recently. Kind of looks like Back to the Future.
Kinda.
The third one. This picture is a little bit better. You know, and their house could be one of these, honestly. Look at
the car in the
back.
Hey,
look, they've got a ramp right there. It's ADA compliant for wheelchair access. We're ahead of their time. Yeah, that car. The chicken.
It was probably for like carts, people pushing up carts because they've got dry goods and stuff.
Yeah, okay.
But I mean, if you had a wheelchair,
pull up a wheelchair from 1920. Ooh, that's creepy. All right.
Their mom is a local public school teacher, so it's likely David and his siblings were well educated. In 1931, Dave married Leona Winfrey while living in Detroit. The Great Depression was in full swing, but according to their marriage license, Dave's occupation is factory work, and 10 years later, in 1940, he is working at an auto parts factory.
I want to pull up their marriage license again to show what an incredible asset these are for family historians. On a personal note, though, I love seeing old marriage licenses because, you know, it represents what was probably one of the happiest days of that couple's life. For Dave and Leona, it was October 24th, 1931. Taking a closer look, marriage certificates often offer a wealth of information. This one lists both sets of parents, including mother's maiden names, birthplaces, occupations, and witnesses. You know, believe it or not, I've actually cracked a couple of family mysteries based on marriage witnesses. You really have to look at each document with a fine-tooth comb and then go back and look again once you have new information. Like the little fact, the itty-bitty fact that Leona was born in Virginia. So you want to know something really wild about Dave's wife, Leona, that I didn't tell you before we started filming? Now, keep in mind, I kept this a secret from Alicia all day on this, and it has been killing me. You remember the video we did where I lost my voice?
Yeah.
The Obenshane kids.
The Obenshane.
Thelma Obenshane.
Right.
Was living in Roanoke, Virginia. In 1923. And Leona Winfrey was living less than 1 mile down the road from Thelma in 1923.
What?
Thelma was born in 1906 and Leona was born in 1907.
What?
They probably
They were
knew
probably
each
friends.
Other. They lived so close. Now, I will say I spent the greater part of 6 hours thumbing through yearbooks from 1920 to 1930, desperately trying to find their pictures and see that they were in class together.
Same school.
And it was Roanoke High School, and neither one of them were in it. It changed names from Roanoke High School to Jefferson High School around 1924, and neither girl were in any of them, honestly. And so I think it's possible they were in a private school together. But either way, they were the exact same age, living less than a mile apart. And this picture that we found in Middle Tennessee. That Obenshane photo came to us from someone whom I've never met, and we don't even have the picture in hand, who found it in Roanoke. So it's not like these two pictures were in the same booth.
Even close together.
They weren't. No, they were nowhere close to proximity.
Wow. And they probably crossed paths at least.
Who knows? But they were right there.
Wow.
Yeah. Dave's
crazy.
wife. I thought that was a cool little callback. Be sure to check out that last video of us talking about the Obenshane kids.
Wow. That's really cool. In 1942, Dave Hollingsworth's draft registration lists Mrs. S.B. Harkey as his person who will always know your address. This is his sister, Nellie, who is married to Shirley B. Harkey and also living in Detroit. Here is an Ancestry user uploaded photo of Dave all grown up. Dave lived to be 87 and died August 8th, 1991.
I need to stand up. We've been sitting here talking about this stuff for hours and researching and filming and editing and stuff. I just need to stretch my legs. I'm going to get up. Oh.
Where are you going?
I'm going to get this new table. You want to come help? It's heavy. Genealogy, studying, researching, script writing, filming, and especially editing means a lot of hours sitting at my desk. And sometimes I really need to stretch my legs and back, but keep my workflow flowing to stay on schedule. So when FlexiSpot reached out to send us their E7 Pro standing desk, I said, "Can it get here tomorrow?" It was like they could hear my back cracking every night when I got up from my desk. This thing is mighty. Our current studio desk is a 6-foot fold-out table with a stained piece of plywood from my garage. It's flimsy, and I can't sit on it to ride it up and down. But the E7 Pro has a 440-pound static capacity stability, so it won't fly across the room if you bump it. The best part is that it has a 25 to 50.6-inch height adjust range, which allows me to sit back down. The dual motor 3-stage semi-seat leg structures are a lot smoother than I expected, so I don't have to worry about things falling over or my coffee spilling while it moves. With a 15-year warranty and 30-day risk-free return service, you can't go wrong. Alicia?
FlexiSpot is having mega sales now, and don't miss out. Shop now and use the code YTE7P50 to save an extra $50 off and get your own E7 Pro standing desk. If you have a limited budget, you can choose their E7. Click the link in the description to learn more.
Okay, that's better. Let's get back to it.
Nellie Geneva Hollingsworth was born in 1902, and she looks around 4 to 6 years old in this picture, meaning this photo was taken around 1907-ish. Nellie married Mr. Shirley Harkey on October 19th, 1920 in Mississippi County, Missouri at 19 years old. In 1940, she is 38 on the federal census, and they are back in Hickman County, Kentucky.
19 back then. She was a full
Grandma.
She was a grown up.
Old maid over here. She got lucky. She found somebody.
Her family was just a praying. So something I want to point out here. Have you ever noticed those little circled X's on a census? That indicates who the census man talked to when he came to the house. So in 1940, he talked to Nellie because Shirley was surely at work.
Shirley was surely at work.
Which was road construction.
In 1950, they're living in Granite City, Illinois. Shirley is now a pipe fitter and Nellie is working in a shoe factory. After that, she kind of drops out of the public record until her death in 1985. She was 83 years old.
Mary Hollingsworth was born in 1898, Columbus, Kentucky. The third born in a family of 5 kids. Middle child. And is, of course, living with her family in 1910. But fast forward 10 years and you run into something that will trip you up if you aren't careful. Mary and her sister Grace appear on 2 different censuses in 1920. She and her sister Grace are living at home in Columbus, Kentucky, but also in New Mexico. She is listed as head of household and Grace is a school teacher. You have to look at when the census was enumerated. Columbus was done around January 10th, and New Mexico was done January 30th. Just enough time for them to move across country and meet a new census taker. But 1 year later, her marriage to Charles Comstock is announced in Kentucky. And then, in 1930, they're back in New Mexico. So Mary and Charles had their first daughter in Colorado, yet another new state, in 1922, and named her after her mom, Charlotte. Now, unfortunately, little Charlotte would die of enteritis only 20 months later. I had to look up what that meant, so I'm going to read you what Google AI has to say. It was often caused by bacterial or viral contamination of food or water, leading to severe diarrhea, dehydration, and potentially fatal complications. They were living in Las Vegas, New Mexico at the time. Not to be confused with Las Vegas, Nevada. But they went on to have Lillian and Charles Jr., who both lived well beyond childhood. These folks obviously moved around a lot. Turns out Charles was a traveling salesman.
That makes sense.
That might explain it.
Yep.
Mary was the first in the picture to die, and it happened in Colorado. The problem with that is Colorado has death certificates locked down from public view. Only direct family members can request to view anything done within the last 100 years. So I don't have a cause of death for Mary, and there were no obituaries that I could find across either newspapers.com or Genealogy Bank. Robert Elmer Hollingsworth was born December 10th, 1895. At 24 years old, he is a farmer at home. I really hate it when I'm working on these stories and there are massive gaps in records. I just want to know more. But we do have his World War I draft card, which says he was working as a store clerk in Columbus and that he had blue eyes with a medium build. Years later, his son applied for a veteran's headstone for him, and it says that he was enlisted as a private in the Army for a little over a year during World War I. At 26 years old, he married Miss Hattie Lillard. And check this out. In 1920, she's living about 6 houses down the road as a clerk in a drugstore. Now, I'd love to know how they fell for each other. Because in 1940, they are living in St. Louis, and Robert is an operator on an electric railway.
Did he have any ailments that would cause him to need a regular prescription filled?
I mean, it was 1920. He was probably riddled with ailments. I'm sure he was in no short supply of ailments to be fixed by a cute drugstore clerk. Now strap in, because this one is a doozy. I like to briefly touch on people's kids because they are obviously a big part of anyone's life. Robert and Hattie named their first son James Lillard, James being Robert's father's name and Lillard being Hattie's maiden name. This was a very common way to name your kids back then. James enlisted in the Army during the summer of 1941 and was soon sent to Manila Bay in the Philippines. But in 1942, he was reported missing in action. But then his parents were notified that he was being held as a prisoner of war in Japan. So they found him. He wasn't dead. Unfortunately, their hope of having him return home was lost on October 24th. Again, with October 24th, 1944, the Japanese frigate Arisan Meru, fix me in the comments if I said that wrong, was transporting 1,782 U.S. POWs,
Oh my goodness.
which was unknown to the USS Shark, the United States submarine that fired 3 torpedoes at the Arisan, which surprisingly didn't kill any of the POWs. But 2 nearby Japanese destroyers sank the American sub and went to pick up Japanese passengers. They left the American POWs to die in the water. 1,777 American prisoners of war were drowned.
My goodness.
And James Lillard Hollingsworth was one of them. Only 9 men survived the event, and only 5 of them made it back to American hands. I can't imagine the roller coaster of emotions that Robert and Hattie went through from 1942 to 1944.
Man.
You know, but also, James was a Japanese POW for 2 years. 2 years, and then drowned in what had to be an insanely horrifying day. It's stuff like this you can't really get your head around.
Yeah.
Now, James's brother, Robert, was also a veteran, and he was a career man. He served in the U.S. Navy from 1944 until 1963 and retired as a chief petty officer. He proudly served on board the carrier USS Essex during World War II and also was a veteran of Korea and Vietnam. Now, the USS Essex was an aircraft carrier with a long list of history. One thing that stuck out to me was it was the primary recovery ship for the Apollo 7 mission.
Wow. This picture, sitting on a shelf in an antique store, was absolutely packed with stories. And none of these kids were even famous. That's why we love doing this. Everyone has a story, and we want to tell as many as we can. Let us know in the comments what you would like for us to investigate. Check out these other videos if you want to see more, and we'll see you next time.